Welcome everyone, friends of Frisbee, folks watching at home to this, the first match of the second day of the 2021 New Zealand Ultimate Championships held at beautiful Puna Sports Hub in Christchurch. My name is Blair Monroe.
My name is Rachel Siahani Royal.
And we are here for a fantastic matchup between Hammertron, Agents of Field, and the Canterbury Cannon, or the Wellington Cannon, sorry. I knew it was Canterbury Cannons.
So we have a matchup of another North Island, South Island matchup this morning. And it's looking to be a great game. There's we've got an 11 degrees weather and quite a bit less wind than yesterday, but we are looking at not too many clouds and a very calm day.
Absolutely. So yesterday was plagued by a lot of wind, as we found. We saw a lot of teams struggle quite a lot to battle against those conditions. We had Zodiac versus Spring Chickens straight away. But today's game, Hammertron Agents of Field, coached by Hamish Crockett, Jesse Preble and Beth Williams as our captains, Kelly Carter and Emma Taylor playing as our spirit captains. And we saw three of those ladies in our Fight City showcase game last night. We've got Zeta Brun, Carolyn Farris, the Colorado Comet, Simone Ball, the Seamstress, Kate Franson, Wendy Spratt, Anne-Marie McDonald, Juliana Mackay, Mary Kerridge, Maringi Hogan, Genevieve Palmer, Stephanie Franson, Maya Steiner, Lucy Young, Jane Weber, and Anne-Marie Domper.
Quite an experienced team there. We have, for the Cannons, Coach Richard Fernando and Sam Lenartz. We have the captains, Kat Teo Lenartz and Madeline Tiang. We have also Becky Farr, and we have our spirit captain, Tiadify McGuinness. Players, we have Shira Hida, Samantha Cording, Gabrielle Foster, Kimberly Fuller, Skylar Ellington, Rebecca Beattie, Anna Cairns, Olivia Eltenberg-Carey, Alaguna, and Marie Legrell, Aini Louie, Penny Muet, and Petra Radmanovich, apologies.
So that's three Anne-Maries on the field, two on our Hammertron side, one for our Cannons. The battle of the Anne-Maries here as we start off the first game of the second day of our tournament. It's a little bit cooler than it was yesterday. The sun's still low in the sky, not a lot of heat, so we're not going to see too much overheating, which is a great opportunity for both of these sides to really get their engines fired up to bring the heat themselves.
We also see quite a damp, dewy field so far. That'll probably burn off later on, but at the moment, every time the disc hits the ground, it's going to pick up quite a bit of water. So, and as a result, be a bit more slippery. We're going to look at players trying to avoid that. Obviously, we always try to avoid turnovers, but specifically after a turnover, it might be good for them to dry the disc off on their shirts if they have the time.
Absolutely. Now, and just following on from that, what are the other benefits of having that slight dewy field is that it's a great opportunity for players to make some great layout bids. With the wet grass, players tend to slide more, particularly when they hit the turf at full speed. So we might see, particularly from some of the more confident handlers on both of these sides, putting throws out into space, knowing that even if our players have to leave their feet to get them, they'll be able to pull that through. Now, Maringi Hogan promised me at least 2 layouts during this game, so we'll see if she can make good on that.
I know there's definitely quite a few players on the Hamilton team who are looking for layouts today, aren't there?
Absolutely.
They're fired up this morning.
So Emma Taylor, who played for the Barbarians in our showcase game last night with a big pull.
Cannons with their first offensive point. Their captain, Kat Teo Lenartz, picking up the disc in the middle.
And so it looks like we're going to see Hammertron come down in a zone defense. We've seen Hammertron sides in both the mixed open and women's division make great use out of zone over the last few years for some really, really fantastic performance on a national level.
Now these first few points, it's really, teams are feeling each other out, even within their own team. So throws like that, you're lining up what it feels like on this particular day, in these particular conditions. It can change quite a bit into the next few points of the game, and we'll see which team picks up first on the mechanics of this particular matchup.
Emma Taylor with a great deep cut from the center space.
Hamilton playing their hex offense, as we see so frequently. One of the few teams in New Zealand who play that, and didn't quite work out for them in that regard. We have Cording with the D, run through D.
Just absolute great field awareness, seeing that throw develop, getting under space, developing a huge deep cut. But instead, that zone pressure forcing Cannons to make some smaller, more controlled passes, having to work around that zone. So those deep cuts from Cording, who makes just fantastic work in the downfield, makes it a little bit harder for her to have that speed and athleticism utilized to the same extent that she might be under a person defense.
And we see that arrowhead zone from Hamilton working very well and creating a turnover. That was out the back of the end zone though, so they'll have a full field to work up from Hammertron. We'll see what Cannons is going to attempt on defense now that they have a slow turnover. It looks like they're just finding their matchups and they're playing person defense. Cannons quite a young team. They have, I think, 2 high school players as well, so they're developing, but they've got the youthful energy of a lot of younger players. They've had this is their first season, Cannons. They've had a lot of time to play together, but only 1 season, so they've had a lot of improvement. We see Ball lining up the big shot as she frequently does, instead opting to take an under.
Young, Steiner, Taylor. Some great disc movement, exactly what we said. A little bit of a tip on the defense, but Anne-Marie McDonald manages to keep that one alive. Resetting to Simone Ball, center field, right in front of her own end zone. A pick was called. So just a reminder, Ultimate is a self-officiated sport. There are no referees on the field. Players take it upon themselves to learn the rules, make calls as they see fit, and resolve them as amicably as possible. In this instance, as a non-contact sport, players are sort of advised to minimize the potential for pursuit interference. So if a defender is inhibited from following the player that they are actively marking by the positioning or body movements of another player, they can call a pick and the play will reset. So Carolyn Farris, the Colorado Comet, going deep. Great cut opening up there. Simone Ball, it's her bread and butter. She couldn't resist it. And so we've got a lot of momentum downfield.
Simone Ball obviously taking that pick stoppage to eye up her players. That was an excellent shot taken very quickly after the stoppage.
A lot of coverage from the Cannons players. Looks to be playing a little bit of a sort of assassin play themselves. A fantastic score.
Some excellent backup from Hammertron there.
So that was Anne-Marie going up for the disc, just over the tips of the fingers, putting maybe enough energy upwards into it to allow Carolyn Farris for her first game of the tournament, unable to take the day off work yesterday. Comes down as fresh legs and just really puts it all out there.
And we see Ball taking the shot here. The defender who's marking McDonald forces her to go up a little early, and she's lucky that she had her backup teammate in the end zone.
That is textbook Carolyn Farris for you there. Secure hands, just great foot speed.
So that's a break to start for Hammertron. A strong start for them. It's not much of an upwind downwind game, so they're going to want as many of those as they can to secure the win if they're headed that way.
Now, Rachel, you've got a lot of experience playing. We saw you yesterday doing fantastic work in a zone defense for the Spring Chickens in our first match. Do you think that the success of that zone was helped contribute significantly by the presence of wind yesterday?
For sure. It makes the over-the-head shots, whether they be upside-down discs or just flat high-release discs, a lot more iffy. The wind, especially in this particular field, is affected by the stadiums too. It gets very gusty, it gets very swirly, and it's just really unpredictable. So in a constant wind, it's a lot easier to read, and in this field, it was tough yesterday. So our zone was quite successful in that regard.
So Hammertron sending down a zone of their own, as we're seeing at the moment. Do you think that the lower wind conditions might make things a little bit easier for the Cannons to work over the top of it?
It may do, but that being said, Hammertron, a team that's played together for a long time, they're very drilled. I wouldn't be surprised if they had a lot of excellent defensive chemistry. A great read there, and a nice put, not too far and not too long, but getting a lot of distance down the field there from Taylor Lenartz. And then we have a reset to Tiang.
High shot, just a little bit of edge on that disc, sends it over just outside the reach of the intended receiver there. Martingy Hogan to pick up and initiate.
Hogan looking for her reset. So we see matchup defense. It looks like we've got a little clam on the 2 handlers there from McGinnis and Taylor Lenartz.
Great undercut there by Mackay. Finding Weber, making progress upfield. A little bit of a wobbly forehand, but it comes off. Far sideline now. We've got Martingy Hogan again. Finds a Franson.
Hamilton is doing great to move this disc, and great to move the mark there from Franson. A lot of these undercuts are really close. The Cannons are on their heels, so Hamilton's doing a great job of an amazing grab.
Textbook Kelly Carter right there. Body on the line to keep the disc in Hammertron position. We were talking earlier before the game. Sometimes it's important to take the hard road rather than the easy one, mainly because the more work you put in,
the
less your teammates might have to.
Very true, and we see Kelly Carter saving that low grab and then not being a little bit overshot by her handler there. However, it was a good look. They've gained some distance, some yards. They're going to have a chance to set up their defense as well.
Really, yeah, if nothing else, it's always important to recognize how beneficial it can be to gain territory early in a game like this. Great pressure by Hogan there.
There's a really fast cut by McGuinness, and Hogan was there to just set her off a little bit, so well done to them.
Kelly Carter looking to initiate the offense. Beth Williams with a great cut. Out into space, sends the hammer up. There's the read for a great score. Well done by Carter Williams. Again, we saw some of those similar connections as both of those ladies playing for the New Zealand fight today. The women's side, drilled connections at a national level, drilled connections at a club level. So fantastic second point on the board. 2 back-to-back breaks for Hammertron Agents of Field.
Yes, it's a strong start by them. And we see Kelly Carter's throw here. She's a very experienced thrower, and she knows exactly where she wants to hit Williams. And it's right over the head of her defender, a tall defender as it is. So a great read and a grab by Williams, and a very confident put by Kelly Carter.
Putting the hammer back in Hammertron. Just, you love to see it. It's one of those things that I think, as great as the ultimate on display was yesterday, in those windy conditions, you don't have that same capacity for depth of throws, for more dynamic options, the kind of highlight plays that really make both the handler and the receiver feel incredibly powerful and competent and gelled and well together. Those key plays that really fire up a team and allow them to swing the momentum in one direction or another. So with so few overheads yesterday, there was very clinical and calm ultimate. As the conditions settle down a bit for us today, we might see a lot more variety in terms of throws, more edge, more
shapes.
Absolutely.
Bigger puts as well, longer throws. And also, I'm thinking that teams are going to, in their first game or their second game, are still going to be working out how to throw in this new calm condition too. If they're weighting their throws and they're thinking about the wind that isn't here anymore, then that can change quite fast, and adapting to that is very important. Oh, very close on that first throw there from Hamilton.
Great chase there by Brun to nearly block that first pass.
We have Tiang with a great grab. Cording grabbing that under, catching the under, and then looking for that deep cut maybe.
We're seeing a lot of clever disc movement here from the Cannons, moving the disc wide across the field. That pressure from the zone, it's a tough thing to work against a zone. One of the best things you can do. Simone Ball puts one shot up. Jessie Preble in position. Great score by JP.
Preble always, as soon as the turn happened, Preble knew what her team was going to be looking for, and she cut deep straight away, and it was rewarded by a great put.
Fire on the head, fire on the feet. What a great deep cut. Support there by Beth Williams, but it's unnecessary. The pressure from that zone, able to generate a drop, generate a turn. Both of those players in that head, the arrowhead, just streaking deep. Simone Ball picks up great laser beam through to the zone. Fantastic score. Timeout looks to have been called, so after 3 back-to-back breaks. What do you think Hammertron are talking about?
I think when in a timeout like this, you want to solidify what you've already been working on. Hammertron are very good at their fast turnovers. They see the disc turnover. Everyone knows that someone's going to be rushing to pick up that disc straight away. So I think they're going to want to get some fluids in them, get some sugars in them, and just continue what they're doing because it seems to be working really, very well. Maybe talk about what improvements they can make to their zone. Zones always need to be tweaked. As the other team changes their offense, you need to change your defense.
Absolutely. And I think the Cannons being first to break is a good sign for them. Clearly, whatever conversation they wanted to have, they were able to work out pretty quickly. 3 points down is not an insurmountable. It's not an insurmountable barrier to overcome. We've seen teams come back from better deficits. Our game yesterday, where we saw Exiles face off against Hive, Exiles 5 points up to lose on Universe, was a fantastic defensive performance there.
It really was. You saw Hive come out, and maybe it was because their game had finished previous to that really quite soon, but they turned around after about 5-6 points, and they said, no, we're here to play as well, and they did a really good job of taking advantage of the things that Exiles were giving them. They didn't just try and play harder or work harder. They were smart about it, and they used the advantages of their players. And so that was a really good move by Hive there.
Absolutely. So Cannons to come out now on offense again. They know they've got the fitness. They know they've got the throws. There's just those little things. As you mentioned, the zone seems to be working really, really well for Hammertron, but that's a great opportunity, having played 3 points against it, and now Cannons may have taken that opportunity to figure out how they're going to adapt their offense to work it. You'll know, as you played a really, really great zone in one of the matches yesterday, forcing the zone to follow the disc, making use of the width of the field to tire out that zone. The moment that zone is out of position, you're not playing 7 versus 7 anymore. You're playing 7 versus 5, 7 versus 4. So we'll see if Cannons can use the athleticism and legs that they've got. We know how fast courting is. We know what kind of foot speed they're working with. Absolutely, it's going to be a real nail-biter of a match. I was actually talking to Hive's number 24, Anthony Haney, Billy Ray Skyrus himself, who spoke to me after the game and said it's one of the best games he's played. He really, really he really helped to get that team fired up. And they started feeding off each other towards the second half, really starting to pour on the defensive pressure. It's the same kind of pressure that we're seeing Hammertron apply now. Martin Hogan with a great interception there, just fantastic defensive reading, but it turns back the other way.
Some good awareness. That another fast start. Now we see Cannons trying that fast start after that defense.
Great scuba option over the top, long backhand. And defense by Anne-Marie McDonald in the deep space.
On another Anne-Marie as well. So that was a few fast back and forths there. A little bit of a slower start. We see courting on the disc in the handler space here against is that Carter?
Emma Taylor with a big high shot.
Radmanovic makes a great bid. She just gets either in the way or the tiniest tip, and Carter just can't quite make that grab. That's a great bid by the young player there. She is showing some great reading skills at the disc and takes off deep immediately.
Absolutely fantastic. So once again, we're seeing that Cannons offense swing the disc around, courting, putting body on the line to keep it in possession.
We see the zone from Hammertron. I would hope to see some slightly and another really unfortunate turn there.
But a great opportunity for Hammertron to go 4 up over the Cannons. Now again, we've spoken a little bit about this. The women's, particularly in this pool, are doing. It's such an amazing situation to find ourselves in. The Cannons have beaten Blueberries. Blueberries have beaten Hammertron yesterday. Hammertron to win this game today looks at a 3-way tie for top of that pool, or certainly second place in that pool.
Absolutely, that would definitely give it a little headache for the tournament organizers when they have to work that one out. And you'd be if it's a 3-way tie, you'd be looking instead at points differential. So it just goes to show that in every game, every point. And an excellent bid by Radmanovic there. However, it leaves Carter unmarked, and then she puts that into Hogan in the end zone.
A fantastic reception by Hogan, but Muds, that was one layout that you promised me. Missed opportunity there. I don't mind if they're gratuitous. As those who know me know, I may be a little bit biased in this match. I'm a fan of Ultimate in general, but there are only 3 teams I support. The team on offense, the team on defense, and Hammertron.
I think we're going to see quite a few of all of those teams this game. So Blair's going to get a chance to talk about all of his favorite teams today. So that was a really calm reception by Hogan. As much as we want to see layouts, we want to see good technique, and we want to see bodies being safe as well. You know, we don't want to see any heads banging around, any shoulders, so.
Absolutely. So as we've sort of mentioned before, particularly yesterday, Ultimate is characterized by the spirit of the game, which I guess is most simply described as respect for yourself and respect for the other team. Communicating with one another, making sure that everyone knows and is playing by the same rules, but also remembering that it is a non-contact sport. So making sure that bodies are preserved, particularly as we're moving into the second day of a tournament with a day ahead of us as well, and a finals and semi-finals tomorrow. So bodies do need to be preserved. Smart play, particularly in these conditions, is going to do a great job of keeping those bodies intact, and we saw that there. Marangi Hogan could have laid out for that gratuitously, but opted to just run that disc on. It's a very, very smart and clinical Ultimate on display.
So we just saw the coaches for Cannons, Teo Lenartz and Fernando, talking to their team. They're also 2 players this tournament, so they're not going to have much opportunity to stay with Cannons all day, but hopefully they can impart their wisdom and get Cannons their first score. We're seeing another zone from Hammertron. Why change up when their defense has been working so well?
That said, Cannons having not a lot of trouble swinging that disc around. A knee goes to keep it, but then as soon as the zone's out of position, we chip through it. It becomes one of those 7v4s, but a little bit slow on that reset. Big shot going up. Makes it a little bit harder for the zone to get in position. We're right on the red zone, on the doorstep.
Ellington receives that beautifully. She's eyeing up the end zone. She's being patient, which is good. Younger players like that can sometimes rush things. They're well drilled, this team. They spent a lot of time together this season, as many teams have.
A great opportunity for Cannons to put themselves on the board. The zone pressure forcing a swing wide. And continuation, just trying to chip away, make that zone move. McGuinness there on their near sideline, recentering the disc, just trying to work around the zone.
And
a little bit much edge on that disc. It faded off towards the right-hand side of your screen, despite a great chase.
Yeah, great chase by Taylor Nartz, but an awkward shape by Fuller. And this is anyone's disc there, so we see it go to ground.
A little bit of a hospital pass there.
Luckily, no players going to hospital today.
So Hammertron once again coming out on defense.
That's good. Good movement pressure there. That kind of, I like to call it a candy cane movement. Swing, swing, and then the third swing is down the sideline some. That's a great way to get in front of the wall there.
McGuinness with a big long shot out to space. Beth Williams, the only player in sight, but a great territorial option, particularly as the Cannons are maybe getting a little bit sick of playing those sidelines a bit. So edge on that disc, bringing it a little bit more infield, which is a great thing for Hammertron, but also giving
we see a cutter deep. I'm sure Ball sees it as well. However, she's stopped by the excellent mark of McGuinness.
Sargent puts one through. Franson, sorry.
Franson, who has her 1-year-old on the sideline today as well, being looked after by her husband.
Probably already throws a better forehand than I do.
And we see a deep shot to Ellington.
One-hand grab, brings it down. No bagels for breakfast this morning as the Cannons put their first point on the board. 4-1, still in favor of Hammertron. 20 minutes down from our time cap, but still anybody's game. This is exactly what the Cannons need to really swing the momentum in their favor.
We're seeing a lot of high fives in the field by the Cannons. They're pretty psyched.
Absolutely. So that was a very, very long point. Remember, we had a timeout called, and Cannons were the first to break. So clearly, whatever conversation they had has done the trick for them, generating turn after turn, not getting defeated when they're broken on offense. Really great performance.
And a lot of it's just, you know, you get a few touches in the game, you know what it feels like now, you're kind of, maybe the adrenaline's calmed down a little bit, the chance to tighten things up, that sometimes it's just what it takes. So hopefully, if that's what Cannons are going to do, they have had their chance to work out their first game of the day nerves, and they're going to just move forward with confidence from here. We have the coaches again talking to their line, so it's nice to see that they have that leadership with them.
Absolutely. And Rich, I mean, you were even mentioning before the game that quite often that first game of the day, you have the cheeky coffee and you've got to just wait for those caffeine jitters to settle down. So it's great to see that the Cannons didn't concede that many points before allowing those nerves to settle down, putting some pressure on their own, and really putting themselves on the board. Now they're going to come down on defense.
And a high floaty pull from Tiang. Let's see if it stays in the field. There you go.
And giving plenty of time for the defense to get set up. Kelly Carter in that handler space finds Spratt.
Karen's there with a sniff on that D. Spratt is patient and finds her receiver.
Brian far sideline. Big high backhand.
Oh, and
over the tops.
That was a really nice put, nice shape, readable by Braun. It was a very unfortunate drop, but if she keeps putting those up, they'll definitely be caught throughout this game, I'm sure.
Absolutely. Great touch on the defense there to just bobble that one away. Good positioning by Hammertron to try and get coverage over it to clean that one up.
Radmanovic with the read there.
Just a fantastic disc movement that we're seeing on display by Cannons. The same disc movement that'll have seen them put a couple of points up over Blueberries.
They're looking quite a bit more confident now, Cannons. They have options, and they're taking them without hesitation, which is good to see, because that hesitation has been tough for them earlier on.
The put goes up, a lot of edge, but from the knees to the hands. Big hammer fake, you love to see it. Still that same clinical disc movement. Cannons looking to put their second point on the board. Really great movement around that zone.
Some really great throws from young players here. We see some good release points. You see them low, you see them wide. Shows a lot of drilling that's been going on for them.
That's your candy cane opportunity. We're seeing those just continued swings back across the field, shifting the zone, finding holes in the Hammertron armor.
And the cutters, the downfield is working really hard. There's 3 or 4 unders at the same time, and that one just a little low for Cairns.
Great undercut, though. Had clean separation, nice, powerful movement into space.
And that might have been a defensive piece from LaGrelle on the mark. Just making that disc tip up and come down too quickly for the Hammertron receiver. We see Puna on the mark now. The sideline from Cannon's really close. And a few Hammertron players too. Again, big hammer fake. Maybe we'll get to see that later on in the game.
Hopefully in this one we'll get to see a lot of them. Laser beam up that far sideline. And
another defensive piece. So the defender getting a hand to that, changing the angle, making it impossible for their players to catch.
Emma Taylor now in that handler space, hoping to shift the mark, threading one through the defense to McDonald.
I like to see a lot of communication from the Hammertron players. They're really clear with their fakes, with their words even. You know, the easiest way to communicate with your team is to tell them what you want. They're doing a great job of that. So it makes it a lot easier as a teammate if you know exactly what the person with the disc wants.
Absolutely. Huge amounts of pressure that we're seeing from the Cannons defense, and it's enough to generate that turnover, particularly when you've got players like Simone Ball or Kelly Carter in that space. It looks like we're seeing one of those Cannons defenders peel off a little bit and just apply sort of a not quite a double team because the proximity's still there, but just enough coverage on those really confident throwers for the Hammertron.
Yeah, you want to give those strong throwers fewer lanes to throw in. If you've got the mark on one side, on the flick or the backhand side.
Great breakthrough there.
Low release from Tiang. She's done that quite a few times. And we see her hammer from far. She's been wanting that quite a few times at this point. She finally gets it.
Courting, hoping for an assist. Has to look backwards in the face of the Hammertron zone. That same clinical disc movement that we're seeing works so well from the Cannons.
And again, Radmanovic in the middle, looking for her continuation.
A laser beam right under the outstretched arms. Fantastic score there as Cannons put a second on the board. A great break for themselves.
They look at them congratulating each other, just proud of their work, proud of each other.
This really is such a fantastic game with a lot on the line for both of these teams. We haven't had the good fortune to see all of that pool play, to see all of those games, but trust us in the booth here that there's a lot riding on this one in terms of performance. Just absolutely fantastic. We've seen just so much great ultimate from these teams and the Blueberries today, yesterday rather. And it's this is the game that really defines what happens for these three teams throughout the rest of the tournament.
Yes, it's been a bit of an unexpected pool play so far. So this is really going to affect who you match up with in the quarters if you make the quarters, and whether you're in a strong position or a weaker position. So, I mean, every game counts, every point counts, but some are more strategically important than others. Something that the captain should keep in mind, but not necessarily each individual player. You know, sometimes you just want to be able to listen to your captain and your coach and play the role that you've been given, and you don't want to worry about the rest of the seeds or seeding or the pool play or the playoffs or the crossovers. You know,
absolutely. There's a lot of administration going on behind the scenes. So a huge shout out to Canterbury Ultimate for putting on this fantastic tournament here at beautiful Ngāpunawai Sports Hub in Christchurch. But you're exactly right. I think that for the players, particularly those for whom this might be the first tournament, you mentioned that Cannons have put together the team relatively recently.
I think it's a lot of their first nationals, but they have played the warm-up tournament, so they've got a little bit of time in tournament time under their belt.
But it's just great to get out and recognize the privilege of being able to just get out and play Frisbee at a tournament like this, considering the current global status. All eyes currently on New Zealand, but just chase a disc, run one down, grab it, pass it to someone else. If you at home have never had the joy of playing Ultimate, I urge you, go down to the warehouse, somewhere in the toys or sports aisle, you'll find a cheap Frisbee, maybe $10. Go down to the park, just muck around, have some throws, take a dog, take your kids.
You know, or if you live in a biggish city or town, hop on Facebook, look up your local Ultimate group. Everyone's welcome to play. Everyone's welcome to attend, open pickup or scrimmages, and there's always going to be something there for you to do if you want to reach out to those players who are around you.
Absolutely, and it's important to recognize as well that the spirit of Ultimate is very, very strong in New Zealand. We're historically quite known for our spirit. there's a very, very strong welcoming environment as well, particularly at those pickup sessions. If you know nothing about the game, if you've watched these streams and you're still unsure about some of the rules, head along to one of those pickup sessions. There will be people there who would love to teach you how to throw, who'd love to get you involved in that community.
And who are happy to do so.
Absolutely. It's such a fantastic joy. In fact, it's probably one of my greatest contributions to the community is the privilege of being able to sit here with my good friend Rachel to talk through some of the games and maybe share some of the excitement that I have for the sport with you at home.
And we see Cannons on defense. They're going to be looking to get another break. So we have got match defense from them again. Oh no, it looks like it is a zone of some sort. So you see the players in the middle who are switching off the Hammertron players and finding different spaces. So yes, definitely a zone here.
So again, Ball and Williams working together well to keep that disc moving.
A dangerous combination. They know what they're doing and they know what each other is looking for.
Hogan center field. Finds Steiner on the far sideline. Great backhand through the Ball. Right in her danger zone. We know she's got throws. We've seen her thread the needle several times during that showcase game. The Hammertron seamstress. Hogan
used to pressure and used to those grabs. She's always ready to receive the disc.
Great work there by Hammertron.
Excellent move from Hogan, and that's what I like to see. She's always got her eyes on the disc. She always knows she can hear and listen and see what's happening, and she's always ready to receive. And that tic-tac off of her is what worked for Hammertron just that point.
Absolutely, and a big shout out to Maya Steiner, who got almost every second touch on that point. We're going to see that here.
You see some textbook triangles from Hammertron. You know, a lot of coaches talk about triangles, and they work. You know, you're making the defense look in 2 to 3 different places at once, and that it's very easy to spot when it's being done well, as you saw that point with Hammertron.
Absolutely. So Hammertron go 5-2.
5-2. So
over Cannons.
Still early in the game. However, we are creeping closer to half now. It can disappear in the blink of an eye sometimes. You look at the score and you think, oh no, we've got ages, and then all of a sudden the game's almost at the end. We see Richard Fernando talking to the Cannons line, and now Richard is not only their coach and also a player for Dogma, he's also the tournament organizer, so he's put a lot of work in this weekend and in the previous, this whole season, in fact, so big shout out to Richard Fernando for his time and efforts and skills.
Again, when Credo sent a team to Australian Nationals a couple of years ago, it was fantastic watching Fernando play in that space and just have such great on-field leadership. I've never seen Fakes in New Zealand Ultimate used so well to direct the flow of play. So honestly, it's really, really great that the Cannons have that kind of field experience and wisdom to help guide them a little bit, as well as Sam Taylor-Lennart's.
Both really experienced players, but also very focused when they're on the field. You know, they know exactly what they want, and they don't let. Oh, and we see a through the legs there for Tiang.
Great roller pull there.
That was a good pull. Didn't fade away to either side.
And so Hammertron once again coming down in that zone defense. The Cannons having adjusted quite a lot, able to get those clean swings in, those candy cane disc movements that you were talking about, curving back around in front of the zone, and then trying to hammer one up the sideline.
And Redmanovich again, those high discs that she's able to catch so easily. See those a few times. So we're seeing a slightly looser but still arrowhead here from Hammertron. Kind of similar to what we play in Christchurch and Canterbury, what we would call a junk, although it has its differences as well. Really deep, these Cannons players. You know, they might want to cut forward a little bit more. The handlers are still working with only 3 players. You can bring a 4th in if that helps, but they've obviously got their game plan and they're sticking to it.
Absolutely. The wind is starting to pick up just a little bit, coming from the far near side, the bottom of your screen towards the top, so the near sideline towards the far. It's not really high enough at the moment to put a huge amount of pressure on the throw, so we're seeing those Cannons make some great plays.
Just behind the receiver there.
Great look there. Good awareness of space. Just really fantastic field vision, but not quite able to get that connection and put another point on the board for the Cannons.
And I expect to see a deep streaker here, a deep cutter coming, which quite frequently happens. Having played with Simone Ball, I quite frequently know that that's what she's looking for, and she makes it easy. She puts up some beautiful putts. Ooh, and just too fast there, unfortunately. The defender just managing to get in the way of that grab from McDonald. And we see the zone again. So this is something that happens quite frequently these days in that they're holding their zone all the way into the end zone. Oh, and
great scuba look, but just a little bit much edge as it helix back towards the far sideline.
Karen's getting some green grass stains on her jersey. A great put from, was that Franson?
Looks like. Ball going over the top to find McDonald. Straight through to Jesse Preble. Quick reset to Simone Ball.
I really like the way that, oh, as a pick call. I really like the way that Hammertron thinks. It thinks in both directions of the disc, thinks downfield and upfield, and also the third direction of side to side. They're not stuck just staring downfield. They know exactly what they want, and they're not scared to go back to get it.
Absolutely. So this idea of a sort of a circular, that hexagonal offense that we see, there's a lot more, it's focused on possessions and position than it is necessarily a yard gainage.
So they're getting close to the end zone here, and this would be a break for Hammertron, so they're probably pretty hungry for another one.
Jesse Preble with the quick reset to Franson.
So we see a flick force from Cannons, who are trying to force the players to throw it with their away hand, their right hand, if they're, sorry, with a flick throw with their right hand if they're right hand dominant.
Great work there, just threading it up that sideline.
A little bit less movement downfield, although we have McDonald coming in now. McDonald, previously a runner or a sprinter, I believe.
Yeah, in the sort of middle distance. Great look to space with a bit much angle on that, so Mackay not able to get underneath it. A stoppage. So it's unclear what the source of the stoppage is. Possible injury or a foul.
It seems like it might be Taylor Lenartz and Ball talking about what the stoppage is. There's a bit of reenactment going on. So we'd hope to see some hand signals, but we see one now. It's retracted, so I'm not sure what that was. May have been a foul, may have been stall, but it's retracted regardless.
So the turnover will stand. Cannons with a long field ahead of them to march back, but a great opportunity for them to put another point on the field, on the board for them.
And you know, we can feel the wind picking up a little bit. It's the flags are flapping a little bit more in the background. We see Taylor Lenartz was trying to get that to Cording, and it may have been a high stall count because that seemed to be a quick decision release, but it rolls nicely for Cannons, and we have Ball running to pick up the disc.
Finding Weber on that near sideline. Great patience to reset. Big shot goes up, but there was looked like maybe contact on either the disc or the hand, but seems to have been after the release.
We see Ball give Radmanovic a pat on the back for that D. That was an excellent D. That was a huge deflection on that disc. Karen's lining up the grab. Taylor Lenartz has been doing a really good job of seeing those open players and hitting them over the top. Cording trying to read the disc.
Great positioning. Not looking to close that one off just yet. Great defense there. But a foul was called.
Foul called by Radmanovic.
So it looks like there may have been contact in the air on that defense. We're going to see that again.
And we have had a few rule changes recently in the new Ultimate Rules 2021 version. So it'll be interesting to see if the players are discussing old rules or new rules and how good their knowledge is of the changes. So it seems like it definitely was a foul, and they're having a good chat.
Yeah. So we did see Simone Ball go up and get contact with the disc cleanly before any contact was made, but the contact itself, even occurring after the disc, still has an impact. A player is entitled to their own space and their own line. So even though it looked like the pre-disc contact was clean, it's the post-disc contact that I think is a significant portion of what the discussion is.
We're seeing the Spirit Captain McGuinness step in to listen, so seeing maybe if we can speed up the discussion and resolution of this call.
So one more time, Ultimate is a self-officiated sport, no referees on the field. Players exhibiting great spirit, so it looks like a possible not accepted foul, so the disc will return to the thrower.
So it looks like it was a contested foul. It's gone back to Cairns, who put that disc up for Armanovich. And disc has been tapped in.
Still in great field position for the Cannons to put another point on the board.
And just a little bit low. That sometimes it's hard when you release the disc low to remember that it needs to travel upwards to your receiver. So
that was a great vision though, seeing that cut develop in the zone.
A big mark by Cairns.
Frenson puts one high, generates the turn for the Cannons. Great, that same tic-tac that you were talking about before, just really clean, short passes, those same triangles that coaches love. Only a meter, maybe 2 away from the score here.
And it's getting a bit gusty, so we'll see if Cannons can remember that as they put their throws up.
Great shot through.
And it seems it's goal by Teo Lennartz.
So that makes the score Hammertron 5, the Canterbury Cannons 3.
That was a hard-fought point by Cannons, both teams. It was a longer point, so we'll see how the players are feeling if we get quite a few subs going on. Get to see that point again. Tiang really quick to identify Teo Lennartz in the end zone.
Just really, really great positioning.
And footwork to keep her toes off the paint of the end zone line there.
So it looks like, no, not quite, maybe a timeout. We're seeing the Cannons huddle together, just a little bit of discussion. Hammertron instead sending 7 of their offensive players down to take the line already. Hogan, Domper, Brun, Palmer, Williams, Spratt, and Kelly Carter. I think she's earned, you have to say Kelly Carter in its entirety now, yeah.
Yes, exactly.
Number 80, Kelly Carter.
Very important to fully appreciate the entirety of her name and appreciate her play as well.
Absolutely. One of my fondest memories at an early Hammertron outdoor game, Kelly Carter came over to me and said, "Hey, who taught you how to throw a forehand?" Because they did it wrong.
She's only trying to help you, I promise.
Absolutely, and it truly is some of the best feedback. In fact, it's number 11 on the line now, Genevieve Palmer, who taught me how to throw forehands. So it's great to see that we've both grown as players for Hammertron.
And we see a big pull by Far. So Cannons have had a little discuss. I wonder what they're going to be throwing. It looks like they're throwing a junk, which is, as I mentioned earlier, something that we play increasingly in Canterbury.
Spratt threads one through to Williams in open space.
Williams, a really versatile player. You know, I see her downfield a lot, especially yesterday in the exhibition game. We see Kelly Carter in the red zone of the end zone.
Finds Pran far sideline. Puts one through to Williams, despite great defensive pressure being applied by the Cannons line through to Hogan.
It seems like we may have Hogan almost unmarked. That's a very loose mark on Hogan. She can make use of that. Great work by Hogan.
Absolutely. So again, just those Hammertron connections. We're seeing that same, just really short passes, really quick give and go, accelerating out of the throw, and just those same sort of little triangles. It's not just good for movement upfield, it's great for closing as well. We're going to see that now.
I mean, you give Hammertron an inch and they'll take a mile. I think it's really impressive. They're very good at just abusing any little leeway that you let them have, because, you know, you can't take away everything as a defender. You can only take away a few things, and they recognize that and they work against that. So strong offense hold by Hammertron.
Absolutely. So Hammertron now 6-3 over the Cannons to come back on defense. Still anyone's game. It's relatively tight. We expected a game like this, considering the current status of the pools.
And so frequently, you see one team take half, and then you see the other team, the team that was losing, either come back and make it really close or come back to win. You know, sometimes at halftime can have a big impact. Every little break and every little chance to reassess is important, and I think especially those younger players need to make sure that they're not too focused on playing any one particular way. You need to be able to adapt.
Absolutely. Be like water, my friends, the immortal words of Bruce Lee. But you're exactly right. We saw Hive versus Exiles yesterday. Exiles looked to be running away. Hive come back to win on Universe. We saw Exiles versus Space Invaders during the Division 1 Mixed Championships last year. Space Invaders with 8 back-to-back breaks to take an unanswered half. And then Exiles managed to pour on the points and really pressure the Space Invaders in the second. So we might see some of the same. But still, anybody's game, 1 point at a time. The Cannons on offense. Carolyn Farris, the Colorado Comet, hitting that arrowhead for the Hammertron chase. Big hammer over the top. Great to see. So again, those conditions not so problematic as to start causing us issues. Ooh, a hefty collision, uncontested foul. No question at all that was a risky bid.
You saw some heads moving that time. We get to see it again on the replay here. The Hammertron player thirsty for that defensive bid, and
that's young Steph Franson. We were speaking to her before the game. She did want to get one layout D during.
So we see an accepted foul there, and disc is brought back in by Far, who throws another hammer, this time unable to be brought in. Hammertron with the disc. They are quickly moving it around. Again, those swings. And a big put by Taylor.
And Marie, unanswered, managing to get the better read, putting another point. Hammertron up by 4 now, 1 point away from taking half. We've seen their defense apply so much pressure to generate some really great breaks here.
The edge of that throw is really weighted very perfectly for her receiver, who was standing behind a taller defender too. So,
geez, the sheer wrist speed there to send that disc.
It came out so beautifully flat, and she just precisely how she wanted it. Well, I hope so, because it seemed to go where she wanted it to go.
With Emma Taylor in that handler space, the disc did go exactly where she was planning. I have no doubt in my mind.
So that was a break from Hammertron.
But still smiles there from the Cannon side, which is great to see. A crucial game for them. For them to win this puts them pretty much uncontested top of pool for them. That's really, really fantastic to see. And even though they are down a few points at this point, they're still smiling. They're still excited to be out here.
Yeah, there's a lesson to be learned every single point. You know, and it's never over. It's especially if the conditions can change, which I think I keep expecting the wind to pick up, and I think it might still, whether it be before the end of this game or before the end of the day. They've still got every chance in the world and all the ability to take this game too.
Now, it's something that we mentioned quite a lot during our coverage yesterday, is that the wind feels a lot stronger the further away from the ground you are. So where we are positioned in our commentary booth, we're probably feeling a little bit of chill and a little bit of wind, but it's probably more than the players themselves are. That's one of the reasons why when you're working over that zone, even though it doesn't feel like there's a lot of wind, going over the top can be risky, because that little wind you feel at ground level becomes much more significant the higher up the disc is.
So we see Cannons running their structure here.
Great coverage there by Jessie Pribble, forcing towards that far sideline. The laser beam goes up, Courting underneath it. A great grab just outside of the end zone.
Retrieved by Courting, who waits for an open receiver, but unfortunately just over the head. You see Courting shake her head. She knows how to make that throw, and hopefully next time she will put it on a plate for her receiver. That
really was. It was great field positioning there by the Cannons, great offensive flow.
And we see another quick turn. So Courting and Carnes and all of Cannons have another chance at this now.
That's classic Huck and D. Just send it long and then apply a lot of pressure on the defense to generate a turn closer to the end zone for give you a great opportunity to close out.
We see some switching on the mark by Hammertron. That was a really quick defensive setup, and Courting for the score.
Again, not content with that turnover before, decides to close it out herself. So great point there.
Now, Courting has been working all week, and her job is one of her jobs is as a volleyball coach. So she's been watching at least 4 games a day intently this past week, and has mentioned that her brain took a little time to catch up and change sports yesterday. So she's getting back into the Frisbee mindset. But it just goes to show that she's an amazing athlete. No matter what sport you put her in, she's really applying herself.
Absolutely, and even failing to make that switch, she's still a threat, knowing that she's got that verticality from volleyball, the ability to just go up over almost any player on the Hammertron line and pull the disc down. So a fantastic deep threat, your ideal receiver if you can put a high disc out into space for her, and great on defense as well.
We haven't seen her in the air much yet, though, but yeah, notorious for her foot speed and her height, her leaping ability, so we'll see if that's utilized.
So 7-4, a 3-point game. Looks like after that initial run by Hammertron, it's kind of been back-to-back trading to break here and then a break on the other side. So still a really, really close game. Little over 41 minutes left in the game. Hammertron 1 point away from taking halftime, so they're going to send down their offensive line.
I'm sure that that's what they have in mind. They want to put this offensive point away and then get some water and get some salts in them.
And that exactly is the key thing. There's always a psychological advantage to taking half time, to have put those first 8 points away, to have earned that first half, and then to come out for the second half firing, knowing that you've established a reasonably dominant position on the field. Great defense there, but it looks like contact.
See a foul called by McDonald, and it's quickly accepted by Ellington. Sometimes when you're trying to get those hand blocks, you get it a little too soon. So Ellington hopefully will be able to readjust her timing for next time.
Absolutely. So Anne-Marie on the far sideline.
Good to see a call very quickly resolved.
A high one goes up. Ball pulls it down to the surprise of no one.
McGinnis, aware of the powerhouse that ball is, and a tough mark, lots of movement on the mark. Great grab from Hogan.
But still great defense. A lot of coverage.
Oh, and unusual to see that from Hogan. She just went up the side of the end zone there.
Yeah,
so
just a little bit of outside fade, taking it towards that far sideline.
So we see Hammertron setting up again with their zone. They're likely to be sticking with this for the entirety of the game. That way they don't have to reassess and change their mindset for. Oh, and there's a call.
So they're just double checking where exactly the disc went out.
Sometimes the sideline can help out with this. It's very helpful. So yes, I mean it can be a mind paradigm shift to go from zone to match, which can be tough. So if you stay with zone the whole game, that also works quite frequently too.
Absolutely, but there are quite a few disadvantages to doing that, particularly as the offense pushes so close towards the end zone. They might set up an isolation play where they target one particular player from a very, very narrow and short stack. Trying to cover all of that space in a zone defense can be quite difficult. And so
right between the two defenders that throw was. That was excellent spacing.
Absolutely. You'll quite often see players switch from zone to match. Great bid by Dompa, but Cannons keep it alive.
Saw Radmanovic watch that fall down above her, and she retains possession.
Dompa really giving it everything, chasing down every single disc. That zone looks to have closed in quite a bit, trying to keep things small.
And a high shot from Taylor Knights. She has that scuba drilled.
Absolutely, just a dime of a throw, dropping on the receiver.
And a goal from Cannons, a break from Cannons to hold off half for a little bit longer. Tiang saw the space. There was a player cutting deep. There were no defenders in this area, and she put it out in front of her player. She didn't need to hit them on the head. A great look from her, and we see it again here.
Just fantastic put.
All the space in the world, trusting her receiver.
Just that low release, but air getting up underneath it. Despite great defensive pressure, really good positioning by the Cannons as well. Not only did they have a great receiver underneath it, but there was also backup in case it tipped off the fingers. There's always that second opportunity to keep the disc in bounds. So a great point there by the Cannons. They go up, making it a 2-point game. Really fantastic to see. This is the kind of hotly contested match that we all, particularly in the booth, particularly on the sidelines, those of you at home, that we live for. The only thing better than winning a game 15-0 is to win it on Universe.
There's one of those two scenarios is it makes me more nervous than the other, but yes, they're both amazing feelings. And we see Tiang lining up the pole, a downwind pole.
But both of these teams are coming in with the mindset the only way to be the best is to test yourself against the best. And so we're seeing these two very, very strong sides. Initial momentum heavily in favor of Hammertron. Towards the later half of the game, the later part of the game, we're seeing the Cannons make a really great comeback, huge amounts of pressure.
We see Kelly Carter and Taylor doing some quick movement.
Carter drops the bomb, but a pick was called. Great reception by Farris nonetheless.
Covered a lot of ground for that, but unfortunately, it may have been slightly before the throw. There was a pick called.
And she did have great separation. It could have been that pick had interference there.
That read to me like that could have been a pole play by Hammertron.
Just a few, again, those short give and goes to build up a bit of momentum, build up a flow, and then hand the disc back to one of those power handlers, Taylor or Kelly Carter, just dropping bombs.
The players like Kelly Carter and Ball and Taylor, just their consistency in their throwing is always amazing to watch and just amazing to appreciate. Their technique is obviously well hard drilled, and we see Taylor going up for that disc there, just tipping it just off the fingertips.
Cannons to take offense now. Tiang setting up in that handler space.
Far with the disc. Drawing off her hands and the disc on her shirt.
Great swing to the far sideline. Run through D by Franson. The young Steph Franson we saw in the mixed division playing for AUUC Flood. It's great to see her back in the black uniform of the Hammertron ladies.
She saw that coming and did not stop running to get it. That was an amazing run through D by her.
And it's great to see her defense cleaning up a little bit as the game progresses.
Right by her ankles, Taylor still grabs that.
Huge fake. Williams not able to get it securely, so Cannons with an opportunity to bring it back to a 1-point game.
The tides can turn so very fast, can't they?
Absolutely. The Cannons wanting to spare our tournament organizers a bit of a headache. If they can walk away with a win, it saves our dear Fernando a lot of trouble.
Going to knees for that grab. Courtney not going to let it touch the grass first.
High shot on the reset. Ditches the hat to make sure you can get position.
She wasn't going to let anything get in her way, was she?
Absolutely not. That's one of my favorite things, is to see a downfield receiver halfway through their sprint tear their hat off in anticipation.
And a really fast put. Wow, that was a lot of spin on that.
Absolutely.
You saw a lot of rotation through every part of Taylor's body. She started from way back behind her body and just tore that release apart. So unfortunately, her receiver wasn't quite fast enough or in the right position.
But
still
we know, and absolutely, we know that Hammertron as well, they're playing the zone, so a great territorial throw for them. They can set up that zone as the Cannons take their time getting back, using a few moments to catch their breath.
And still a lot of chat from the sideline here too. We've got, and a foul called, or some kind of contact called. So discussion between Farr and the Hammertron player of
Stephanie Franson, and Kat Taylor-Nartz is offering perspective from the sidelines.
So it looks like Taylor-Nartz may be giving a rule clarification, and they've come to a resolution, so it's an accepted foul.
So Cannons will take possession. Although it's unclear at the moment whether or not that'll be bringing the disc in from that sideline, or Yep, it looks like it will. So we'll treat that pass as having been completed.
Everyone looking really calm on the field as well, which is nice.
Absolutely. Now, if the wind were a little bit higher, this would be the coffin corner, but...
Ooh, and just in the back, just on our heels there, Tiang is, and he doesn't manage to grab that. Quickly on the mark, though. I see
Taylor.
a lot of players in the end zone, but with great spacing, and unfortunately not looked to as they try to swing that backwards and dump, and it's turnover.
So one more time, Cannons having made a little bit of a gain, retaining possession. That zone setting up. Cannons grateful for the space behind them now that they can use to work around that zone, those same candy cone swings.
And just a little too far. The downfield defender saw that very early on and was able to take that away from them.
Great movement, Kelly Carter, far sideline, sends the bomb up to Beth Williams. It's good. Great score as Hammertron take half. Fantastic first half to this game. Neither team letting the foot off the gas at all. So much pressure, so much athleticism, the great throw selection. Just an absolutely dynamic game. Both teams giving everything, hungry for this win.
We get to see this excellent throw from Carter again. Those two had eyes for each other. Just helped on its way by Courting.
What a great bid by Courting, just not enough. Fantastic finish to the first half at day 2, round 1 of the 2021 New Zealand Ultimate Championships at beautiful Ngā Puna Sports Hub in Christchurch. My name is Blair Monroe.
My name is Rachel Sigahani Royal.
And we will be back with you shortly.
and welcome back to day 2 of the New Zealand Ultimate Championships 2021. We have Cannons from Canterbury, and we have Hammertron from Hamilton coming back. We are at the Naipunawai Stadium, and it is a beautiful morning. We've come back from the first half. My name is Rachel Siahani Royal.
And I'm Blair Munro.
And we have Cannons on the line here. Hammertron yet to set up on the line, but they are still discussing things. Over the half, we saw a lot of chat within teams, but we also saw a lot of high fives between teams. So good to see that everyone's in friendly spirits.
Absolutely. So the score currently 8-5 in favor of Hammertron as they close out that last point to take the first half. A 3-point game at the moment. Now, as the game started, Hammertron scored 3 back-to-back. So the teams have effectively been trading since then. Which is really, really great to see the Cannons getting fired up as the game proceeds. They're able to really apply that pressure, are working around that Hammertron zone that we've seen them use so successfully in the early game. It's just really great energy to see. An important game for both of these teams as well. But still, with 23.5 minutes left on the clock and only 3 points in it, it is anybody's game.
Yes, every point is really going to make a big difference here. If we have some longer points like we saw in the first half, we could easily only see 2 to 3 scores in the remaining time. So everything's vital at this stage, and let's hope that every player can remain focused on that. We see the 2 Spirit captains on the sideline having a chat. They would have spoken to their teams and then come together to discuss what feedback the teams had given them to try and improve the Spirit over the course of the game. So Cannons will be pulling to Hammertron here by the looks of it.
So Hammertron to come down on offense for the second half. Which really, and Rachel, you've got a lot more playing experience than I do, and a lot of confidence on the field. Do you think that that's a great sort of tactical move? Do you find that when you win the flip at the beginning of the game that you opt to come out on defense so that you can come out on offense at the second half?
Definitely, yes. It depends on the conditions, really. If it's quite an upwind, downwind, then typically you'd want to prioritize getting that upwind positioning over being able to start on offense. But there's so many different strategies towards that. Someone could explain to me their strategy, and I'd probably believe them as well. I think it's sometimes it's just whatever your team is used to as well. Absolutely.
So Hammertron, having won the flip, playing out of the dark uniforms, the Canterbury Cannons in light. Hammertron playing towards the left-hand side of your screen from the right, coming out on offense now.
So they are starting from what's considered the upwind side of the field, Hammertron. And far with the pull.
Nice long pull.
And we hear some cheering from the sideline for both teams now. Seems like everyone's still pumped after that half. Great movement from Hammertron handlers Hogan and Carter.
Sends it to Beth Williams in the zone, waiting for a read. Great first point there, despite an impressive bid.
That was an excellent bid by Ellington. Very close, but also very clean, too. So that's what we want to see. She was just trying to get that over the top of Williams, knowing that she had the height advantage, but unfortunately wasn't quite able to make it. This put from Carter, though. How high does she release that? It's amazing that she's able to not have that float or flip over. So
just
close.
Textbook precision. It's exactly the kind of things you'd expect from players who have made that national side, from players who have trained together, who have drilled everything, particularly under the guidance of national coach Tim Gurman. A great player in his own right, who it's unfortunate we haven't seen during this tournament.
Kelly Carter's got a big history playing for New Zealand as well. She's played for Manuka, the mixed team, in 2016, and then again for Manuka at Beach Worlds in 2017, and then in 2018 for Black Sheep. So she had a lot of experience internationally.
No stranger to high-level ultimate, that's for sure. What a fantastic put, and again, it was initiated with those same little triangles. Carter had the disc, looked back to Hogan, and then followed in the same direction. So the reset was 45 degrees backwards and behind her. but then making a nice slash cut towards that sideline in front of her mark. Great opening there.
And that cut earning her what we like to call a power position for that huck. It means that she had momentum going in the direction of her end zone, and potentially that her marker was slightly out of position as well.
Just really, really great play there as they go up 9-5 over the Canterbury Cannons. The pool this time leaving the field, and so it will be bricked. So about halfway across the field and 18 meters in front of the end zone is where the disc will be brought in from. Sends a shot of her own in response. Great reception there. McGuinness looking for an option.
She's a very patient player. Radmanovic choosing to dump back to Teo Lennartz. And she's they're working really hard to get it up through the middle, and then and a great defensive play there.
Pressure from the head of that zone by Pran, and then giving Palmer an opportunity to bite on it.
Palmer, great awareness. That wasn't her player, wasn't her disc, but she was still right there.
Ball on that near sideline. Sends that same beautiful IO backhand.
And a defensive bid by far. Let's see if there's a chat. No call is shown there. There was a bit of a pause, but no call.
Would have been a great bookend opportunity for Palmer there, generating the turn herself and then being in that deep space, maybe a little bit much float on that disc. Maybe a bit more edge from ball, might have had it out in front a little faster, giving Palmer the opportunity to run on, but still great territorial work, great field awareness from that side. Cannons now working up through the field. A great bid to keep that one alive.
Two bids we have from Kordic and then Radmanovic managing to secure it. Looking to dump. We've seen a lot of layouts from Radmanovic. He's been doing a really good job of securing it. The disc
puts one up to Kordic in space. McDonald on pursuit. Kordic pulls it down.
Just by her fingertips, but unfortunately was outside of the field when she did so.
An absolute heartbreaker. That's the kind of Eva Weatherall play that we typically see. I'll get the disc first and then I'll worry about whether or not I'm in bounds. The two of them on the same side for the Barbarians in last night's women's showcase game. Really fantastic threat in the deep space.
And a run through by Teo Lennartz. She's everywhere. She's handling, she's on defense, she's doing an excellent job.
Just great work there on that defense. An attempt at a quick release high backhand around the mark, but the run through D shuts that one down.
And you see her working up the line. There's quite a few Hamilton players, so I wonder who's open on cannons.
There's the great hammer into space, but maybe a little bit of miscommunication.
It might have been a later throw. I think that far was a bit crowded. Either a miscommunication or just a bailout, trying to get it as far away from her and as deep as possible. And we do know, we have seen from far quite a few hammers so far, so we know that she looks to those.
And if nothing else, it was technically executed very, very well. There was no wobble at all, turned over perfectly.
Maybe next time, Cannons will have a receiver sitting right there for her. I feel like this is an increase in the intensity on defense by Cannons. They're right at every throw.
Absolutely agree. Great bid there, keeping it clean. Taylor going up. Both players grabbing the disc simultaneously favors offense under the current rules. And so the question is whether or not Kordic actually had contact with and control of the disc before Taylor did.
Which is so hard to discern. You know, when something like that is happening, it's happening so fast. Each player is going to have felt something slightly different, and it looks like they've had their chat. And they're using the advice from the sideline as well. Kordic coming in fast after an impressive attempt on a defense by Farr. So
cheekily dancing out the retracted call. So Taylor will retain possession. Great spirit on display by both of these teams. That willingness to have that conversation, the willingness to hear perspectives from both sides.
Great listening. Oh, and
great defensive pressure there. Ball looking to run onto a floater out into space, but just Cannons players clogging that area and shutting that down, generating the turn for themselves. McGuinness approaching the far sideline.
And we're seeing some triangles from the Cannons now as well, so. Ooh.
Cheeky collision.
Domper? There's a call from Domper and Farr. Domper easy to see by that beautifully colored hair as well. So it seems like there was potentially an off-the-disc offensive foul there that has been resolved now.
Great movement by the Cannons, pushing that up that far sideline. Right in the danger zone, only inches away from putting another point on the board. Keeping that 3-point difference, keeping them in the game. Big swing.
Far keeping her eye on the disc.
Hammer, there it is. And just...
Not clear what defender she was aiming for there, but there was a little bit of hesitation by both Cording and Cairns.
Which
Still
again,
not a bad shot from far.
Not at all.
She's turned them over quite a few times, so maybe if she practices those between games, she'll be able to lock those in. At this stage, though, they're not reaching their mark. They are turning over. So I wonder if she's going to make any changes. Another run through by McGuinness. She just doesn't stop. She's making sure she finishes every defensive play she can. That's an excellent defense D by them. We see it again here.
Nice little floaty put, but just great running through.
Comes it out of nowhere, and Bron is unfortunately unable to get it on the second attempt.
Teo Lenartz, great assist there.
And Radmanovic to finish.
So great point there. Still only a 3-point differential. Such a close game, just trading back and forth. Both of these teams 9-6. Hammertron still up, coming down on offense. Not long left before we hit that soft cap. So at the moment, it is a race to 15. Once we hit that soft cap, we'll conclude the currently played point. We'll add 1 to the highest score, and we will play to that number.
So it seems like we might see either another timeout from Cannons, or they're just having a quick chat on the line. There's not a lot of time in between points. It's meant to only be 60 seconds for the offense, I believe, and 75 for the defense. Either that or the other way around. I'll have to check my rules, knowledge, and use.
So a little less than 13 minutes remaining on the clock. Hammertron already taking the line to come down on offense. Hogan, Preble, Ferris, Stephanie Franson, Beth Williams. Some great names we're seeing here. Maya Steiner, who did some fantastic work earlier on. Just another shout out to her, just getting involved in every sort of second or third touch on the disc, helping to create that space, moving in, catching the disc, resetting to one of those more confident handlers, and then moving into another place to continue the flow of that offense before finishing off that great point.
So many defensive plays that point by Cannons.
Absolutely.
High energy defense. So let's see what if Hammertron are going to try anything different.
And that could be a tough thing to do on defense. So a big shout out to the Cannons for managing to keep that fire burning. When you're a few points down and you're starting to recognize that the time cap is running out, it can be easy to get defeated, to get in your own head, but we're not seeing that from the Cannons at all. They are still firing. Every single point is the only point that matters for them, which is a great mentality to bring into the sport of Ultimate. We're seeing such athletic plays, such explosive movement on that defense, finding those reads, not switching off at all. 3 points down, definitely not an insurmountable obstacle for the Cannons to bring back.
Once again, we see the duo of Hogan and Carter.
Great pressure there by the Cannons. We saw that same trying to get into that power position that we saw a score earlier. But it doesn't come away this time because the Cannons just pouring it on.
It was a great 7 cut by Kelly Carter, so she tried that down the line. It wasn't there, and she immediately turned around expecting that disc from Hogan. However, the defense from the 2 handler marks working together really well. A great break from Tiang. That low release is so hard to defend, but Preble standing with her and managing to match her own foot speed. Oh, and
great score by Cannons.
That's Altenberg carry there, reading it over the top of 2 defenders.
Do we get to see that again? The score going 9-7, a 2-point game.
So that's a break, and a quick one from Cannons. It's a Tiang looking for the end zone here.
A big high angle forehand, knowing she's got the skills to curve that back around.
A great secure catch from Altenberg carry.
You really cannot be mad at that at all. And the cheeky celebrations on that score as well. Great to see. Hammertron coming out on offense, maybe slowing down a bit towards the end of this game. They've started to concede more and more. Cannons getting fired up.
I think we see a lot of momentum from Hammertron, but when they lose that momentum, I think they find it a lot harder to flow and play their offense. So as soon as Cannons are getting in there and getting in their way and taking away their first options, and now they're starting to take away their first and then second, I think that's kind of frustrating Hammertron. But they're still in the lead. They've shown that they've got under small ball, medium, long shots. I think Hammertron especially is one of the strongest teams and women's teams in New Zealand that can throw it deep, threaten middle, and threaten under. Like, they're so versatile. That's what scares me about playing them.
And really, that's why this game is so important. Cannons having toppled Blueberries having toppled Hammertron. Hammertron beating out Cannons might see one of these teams in the final against the sort of expected finalists, Nexus Affinity.
Yes, currently seeded Nexus Affinity would be in the finals.
Hogan, ball, Franson.
Another match defense from Cannons.
Ball proving increasingly hard to cover. Just really great, good hands by Williams, keeping that one, putting a shot with a lot of float under it. Hogan's getting there.
Right into the wind. That was a nice shot, letting the wind hold it up for Hogan.
Now this is always the peril, whether or not we'll see a bit of end zone fever. Great defensive bid by Cannons to generate the turn. Absolutely great work by Hammertron working it up, but that last moment, big scuba over the top. It's going to be brought down by Ellington.
Ellington, who used her height not only to grab the D in the air, but in that last point to lay out in front of her offensive player. Ellington doing great work at this point.
Great work by the Cannons, hoping to make it a one-point game, firing up that far sideline. Sends the big shot, a lot of edge. Williams not able to grab it, Cording pulls it down. We have ourselves a one-point game.
We see a lot of celebrations from Cannons. That was a great spacing by them. You saw there was heaps of space in the middle. They dragged all of the zone defenders from Hammertron out to the width and the depth of the field. And great read just over the head of Williams, who if we see it again, did have a lot of height in her defensive jump.
Just great work by the Cannons to close that point out. Only 1 point in at a crucial game for both of these teams. Little less than 8 minutes on the clock. I've said it before, I'll say it again. You may have paid for all of your seat, but you only need the edge of it.
But, however, if you want to come and view these games today, seating is free. So feel free to come down at any time. We have games on every slot on this exhibition field, as well as an exhibition game this evening. So
absolutely,
open to the public.
So that showcase game that we have for you this evening is between New Zealand, is it Taniwha, the men's team?
Yes.
So the New Zealand men's team, Taniwha, facing off against the male Barbarian side, comprised of some of the stronger players from around the training squad and around the country, all coming together to put on a show for you this evening at Puna Sports Hub in Christchurch. Last night we had the women's showcase game, a fantastic performance by Fight City versus the Barbarians, and hopefully we'll see the same again this evening from Taniwha.
Now, despite players having played for 2 days and it being the end of a long day, those exhibition games are always very exciting. There's a vibe in the air. Everyone's happy to just be playing in front of a crowd, being cheered on. All right, so we see another match defense. Kelly Carter going deep, being rewarded by Taylor, but it's a little short end. And
a lot of edge on that disc. So the question is, where did that disc leave the playing field? Because if it came back in, that's great, and it is a territorial option for Hammertron, but if it left or too far up the field, or if it came down outside of the field, it'll be brought back in pretty close to the halfway line. Looks like they'll bring it in close to the zone, which is a great a saving grace for Hammertron.
Now that was quite an early cut by Kelly Carter. I think she maybe made one throw and then streaked deep, and Taylor locked eyes on her. But however, I think it was maybe came a bit too late. You saw that it was not. Carter was already deep of the throw, so maybe next time they can work on their timing. Altenberg carry, not intent to give up on that disc.
Great defensive pressure from Brun getting the D there, but Altenberg carry able to catch it and keep it in possession. A couple of passes later, we see a turn.
Radmanovic just letting that slip through her fingers. Brun's been coming into her own in the past year or two. She was out with an eye issue for a while, but since then has just been an amazingly versatile player, throws and defense. And we see a score there from Hammertron to secure their offensive point.
Great work by Stephanie Franson. A fantastic young player in that youth space, and seeing some great. It's a couple of questionable bids early on, a lot of contact, but certainly after the halftime, she's cleaned that up a lot. It's great. It's nice to see her creating those deep options for some of those confident receivers.
Both of these teams and both of these clubs actually doing a good job of developing younger players. You know, they're not just selecting from people who are already strong. They're taking, I think there's 2 or 3 players on Hammertron whom this is their first season, and therefore their first nationals. So it's good to see the skills being passed on to new generations.
Absolutely, and I think we're very fortunate in New Zealand. The way our tournaments are structured is that we do not run our opens and women's seasons concurrently with our mixed season. So rather than teams having to necessarily make a choice between playing mixed or playing single gender or open, it's a really great opportunity for them to develop a lot of internal club chemistry, particularly at that mixed level. I think the energy at mixed level is a great thing. You have the sort of the joy and fun tampering a lot of the sort of the potential issues that you can have with ego in single gender open and women's, particularly opens divisions. And so it's really, really great that our clubs in New Zealand have the opportunity to play those mixed seasons as well. And so we have we've got a lot of overlap between those sides and a lot of the chemistry. We see that in the showcase games as well. But yeah, particularly in that youth space, it's nice to have sort of 2 seasons running non-concurrently, so the players can get opportunities to practice in both a mixed and a women's or open environment.
And I mean, realistically, we don't have the player base in New Zealand to be able to run 2 seasons concurrently. So I think it's good, but it's also possibly because that was how it had to happen. However, I, myself included, we do take advantage. Playing both seasons, getting to play all year round is very good.
Great disc movement, great fakes by the Cannons to pull towards that near sideline.
And we've seen this again, just vary from both teams actually quite a bit. You're seeing structure in the handler zone. I'm sorry, in the handler space. Ooh, and Skylar Ellington. Again, a second attempt on that. Excellent job.
Teo Lennart's putting another shot up. It gets hands by Hammertron, but not enough. Ellington pulls it through, threads it into the zone despite massive coverage from Hammertron as we go 10-9, 2.5 minutes left on our clock. Fantastic. Just, I'm chewing off my nails just watching this. This is such a tight, close game.
It is very exciting. I mean, both teams can probably taste it at this stage, and Cannons, having not been in the lead yet, are still waiting to see what that might feel like.
So only 2 minutes left on the clock now. Every second spent on the sideline discussing strategy is a second the players cannot use to either claw open a window or to close one on the opposition.
And I'd be expecting to hear the soft cap go within maybe even the next minute. Sometimes we've been finding that the on-screen clock is a little bit off of what we hear in the stadium. And players, of course, will be going off what is agreed within the stadium.
Absolutely. So anyone's game.
Lots of discussions by both teams on the line. It's been an exciting few points. Let's see if we can finish off the time cap in the same fashion. Big pull coming out from Tiang. She's going to try and get it as far into the end zone as possible, while also making sure, or trying to get as much float to give her defense time to set up, which they've been doing rather well. You've been seeing them down on defense within the first throw quite frequently.
Really great chase on there. Just so you see Courting streaking. No hesitation at all. Meters ahead of the next player to arrive. That's great pressure on defense.
Great coverage of Carter there, who is now being forced into the deep space. And she's gone, and it's gone up.
Great, a lot of float. Perfect catchable disc. Hammertron ladies putting another point on the board as we have 20 seconds left on the clock before the hooter.
That's a great example of what I was talking about earlier. You know, Kelly Carter, she doesn't need to be in the handler space. She's a strong handler, but as soon as she's given a deep cut, she takes it.
Absolutely, just great foot speed. constantly practicing the running. The throws are on point. Just a real star player. I mean, there are a few of those around the country. There are those players who could just by their presence alone take a B team to an A team to really step up. Ben Waller is another great example. Maybe some disagreement in the commentary booth, but
No, Ben Waller is an excellent player.
But I mean, you could think of a handful of names that putting them on any team just really it's a bit Napoleonic, really.
Yeah, and I think it's important to recognize that those players who have skills and experience, or just natural ability, they also do a lot of training. Like we know Kelly Carter does a lot of conditioning, a lot of sprint work. These great players are because they've put in hard work over the years. You know, so if that's what you want to do and that's what you want to achieve, sometimes there's no substitute for just hard work.
Absolutely. So a relatively short point, that one. So as we've run out of time, it seems like we'll play this point and add one to the final score, unless we receive any additional confirmation or information to the contrary.
We're still sitting at a close game. It's tight. Cannons are going to be hoping to hold this one out. So if they score 11-10, game to 12, and if
Hammertron manage a break,
it's going to be
game to 13.
12-9, game to 13. A very different goal. That feels very different as the team who's losing.
Absolutely. So again, we said before that the two best wins in Ultimate are either a 15-0 or a win on Universe Point. And one of those it makes you a lot more nervous than the other. So there's a lot of pressure on both of these teams now. The question is, which one is going to stand up underneath that to a greater extent? Hammertron coming down once again in that very familiar zone.
And we see the disc being walked up as it rolled out the sideline. Taylor Lennart's no stranger to being stuck on the sideline like that. And her handler's doing a great job of splitting that cup.
McGinnis and Tiang sending one.
Oh, this is great work. This shows how much Cannons have learned playing against his zone for the entire game.
Absolutely.
I'd love to see them to continue to go side to side.
Little wide swing, but Taylor Lennart has no issues getting there. Sends the long bong up.
And Barr was right there. She's potentially, there may be a call of some sort. We see everyone stopping on the field.
See that again.
Becky Farr is calling a foul, as you see by the hand signals. So we just saw that replay very briefly.
It looked like the possibility that Williams had an outstretched hand that crossed over Farr's body there on the defense, playing the disc, but still initiating contact.
It's tough to gauge that one. You know, you're wondering, did it affect Farr's bid on the disc? Did it affect Farr's ability to run towards the disc? And discussing it's an important part of the game.
And that is one of those things that you do often see, despite both sides exhibiting fantastic spirit by being willing to have that conversation. Those conversations do tend to get a little bit heated, particularly when the margins are as tight as they are in this game. We know that time has run out. We are just playing out those last few points of the game.
And we see the coach, Richard Fernando, stepping in to talk as well. And there is an expectation in Ultimate, if discussions are going to last longer than 45 seconds, that it is treated as contested and they then can play continues. However, every scenario is different and it is up to the players. So we have a lot of voices, it seems. We've got Spirit Captain McGinnis as well.
And the Hammertron coach, Hamish Crockett, offering a perspective. So again, one of those crucial decisions. It's really, really good of teams to have sought input.
And we see a contested foul being called.
So the disc will go back to the last uncontested play, which puts it in the hands of the confident handler, Taylor Lennart, on that far sideline.
People are going to be going back to their position they were in when the throw went up, or should be.
As close as possible to where they can remember where they were when the play initiated. So the disc is going to get checked in.
hopefully the Hammertron defense can fire up again. It can be hard going from a long stoppage like that to continue to play.
Great swing out to Tiang. Finds far again. The zone resetting in front of the offense. Great disc movement there by the Cannons.
Timber carry on the far sideline. Looking for someone to offer her a dump option, which is given by Becky Farr.
Hammertron slowly pushing them back, but a great swing. The zone out of position, firing up the near sideline to McGuinness, looking to close it out.
We see McGuinness in that spot rather regularly, that candy cane ground gainer position where she's wide open. She's really good at finding those spaces, I find. Cairns in the deep of the end zone was calling for that hammer, and Teo Lennartz seemed very tempted. However, I think smartly managed to holster it, and we're instead looking at her on the front corner of the end zone now.
Absolutely. Great decision making there by Cannons to just keep possession of the disc. Hammertron putting on a lot of pressure, but Cannons keeping a cool head, using that height to keep it in possession.
Oh, very
great
close
bid by the Colorado Comet. They thread one through for a great score, though. Anyway, Cannons 10-11, a game to 12 now. We have ourselves a game. Great break there. Only 2 points away from victory, 2 consecutive breaks. Hammertron only 1 score away from sealing this game out. We knew it was going to be a close one. We did not know it was going to be this close. Some great movement here. Fantastic bid, but open receiver. It's hard to say no to a target like that.
Yeah, Hammertron, they've only got one job at this point. Just keep a hold of the disc until it's all the way down the other end of the field. It's a little bit tougher for Cannons. They're going to want to rely on their mental resilience here. You know, one turn at a time. You can't think about the end of the game necessarily, unless some people that helps that, but I find one turn at a time is what I like to focus on.
The score on the field is always 0-all. Absolutely. 1 point at a time, and even more granular than that, as you said, Rachel, one turn at a time, one pass at a time. You cannot throw the disc until you've caught it. You cannot throw the disc until you've generated that turnover. So it all comes down to this.
It is an exciting game, and we see the sideline just real busy, really busy as well. I mean, it's been a long season, especially considering that we weren't sure we were going to get this season of Ultimate here in New Zealand either. Even one of our warm-up tournaments in Wellington was cut short to 1 day. So the fact that we're all here together and we're playing, it's very exciting, and we can appreciate the work that has gone in by every player and also all the leadership behind the scenes as well.
And the team of 5 million at home, that includes you, for doing your part and making sure that our coronavirus situation has been handled so well that we're able to put on this tournament for you, to put on these showcase games, to allow New Zealand teams to come together and showcase the very, very best of Southern Hemisphere Ultimate, if not the best in the world. I can dream.
And we see Carter picking up the disc. Tiang's been pretty consistent with those polls, so.
Absolutely.
They've got the majority of the field to work.
Ball finds Franson.
Franson, name we've been talking about a lot. There's a call. I saw Carter very open, and I was wondering whether that was due to her great foot speed or possibly a call. But it seems there's a pick called.
Yep. So again, pursuit interference occurs, and players are entitled to catch up to where they think they reasonably would have been had that interference not occurred. And it's both players are responsible for making sure their lines that they choose to run along are as clean as possible, as contact avoidance as possible.
Not only both players, every player on the field. Yeah, so it's not just whether you're the person who's cutting for the disc or their defender, it's where you stand in relation to the other players.
Great work up the line by Hammertron. Pick again. So again, both teams trying to play that really, really small ball ultimate. We know that Hammertron, they use those triangles, they use those small passes. Playing that really close quarters ultimate can generate a lot of picks, particularly as you've got a lot of new players who maybe aren't used to making those cuts as cleanly.
And especially in the final points of the game, tensions are a little high. You know, you're maybe a little bit less calm and more frantic than you would otherwise be. And people's behavior can change. We try and keep it consistent, and we try and keep our calls consistent. However, you know, it's tough. It's sports.
Absolutely.
Endorphins are in blood and sweat and everything.
Something innate to human nature is competition, and we see it here today. A great performance by both these teams. Cannons having clawed it back to just inches outside their fingertips at the moment, but not outside their reach. High release backhand by Ball. Carter finding McDonald. Frenson again, up the line now, Spratt.
Really quick movement by that.
Closing distance. Carter with a read for the score. 12-10. That is game. A bit of a questionable option on that throw, but
she had some strong receivers in the end zone, that's for sure. And Carter showing how strong a receiver she is with that read. We had the Cannons players, we'll see now, in this replay, coming a little too far under, not being anywhere near to where the disc was going to end up. So an excellent job by Carter.
So great point there to finish out the game as we see the high fives marching their way across the field. Hammertron to have put one over on Cannons, Cannons putting one over on Blueberries, Blueberries putting one over on Hammertron. We apologize for the headache that our tournament organizers will have to go through. But for now, at Ngā Sports Hub in beautiful Christchurch, our next game up is going to be the Wild Kittens versus Otago and Friends in our open division. Until next time, my name is Blair Monroe.
My name is Rachel Siahani Royal.
And we will see you again shortly.